Hello, today is Wednesday, June 17th. Welcome to episode 609 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Advisory Board member Lester Munson. I'm joined today by senior fellows John Lipsey, Amy Mitchell, and Andrew Boreen. Andrew coming to us from a U-Haul truck off the turnpike, I think in New Jersey somewhere.
Allegedly.
Thank you, Andrew, for your service. So, folks, in case you were hiding under a rock, the text of the memorandum of understanding between the Trump administration and the Iranian regime has become public. There are 14 points, echoing, of course, the 14-point peace plan Woodrow Wilson had after the end of World War I that led to the failed League of Nations. And a variety of other dubious foreign policy initiatives, including open agreements openly arrived at. There's been a lot of openness here in this process where we've been able to follow the negotiations between Iran and the United States in almost real time with regular social media posts from our president and some from the Iranians. There's been a lot of criticism of this particular memorandum of understanding, which includes things like letting Iran have $300 billion in reconstruction funds coming likely from its neighbors in the region, presumably Sunni Arab states that make a lot of money in the energy sector. The administration has denied that any of those funds will come from the United States. It's unclear exactly what Iran is promising on the nuclear file, as we say. There will be, after the signing of this memorandum of understanding officially, perhaps on Friday in the European country of Switzerland, a 60-day negotiating period over the nuclear file. John Lipsey, I want to go to you first here. What are your thoughts about what we have learned about the details of this very notable arrangement?
Yeah, I think to try to boil down a very confusing MOU and potential agreement here, I think the simplest way to understand it is that this is a massive, the U.S. is providing massive sanctions relief and unfreezing of funds in exchange for the Strait becoming open to commercial traffic and Iran holding its nuclear program, such as it is today, in place without trying to make any further advancements with it. That's the basic structure of the deal, and then as we go through 60 days here, that's more about negotiating some kind of final agreement, final end state to the Iranian nuclear program that would come in exchange for further sanctions relief. From my perspective, there's a lot riding on. So the agreement says, the MOU says that Iran will maintain the status quo on the nuclear program. There's a lot riding on what status quo means. Of course, the status quo is that the U.S. And Israel struck the Iranian nuclear program and did massive damage to it. We don't know precisely what the state of affairs is with their nuclear program, but it does. At the moment, it doesn't seem that the Iranians are engaged in enrichment of nuclear material or the development or putting in place centrifuges. So the program seems to be somewhat frozen at the moment. So it may be that the most optimistic reading of this is that Iran has agreed to effectively zero enrichment and to zero advancement of its nuclear program in exchange for very significant sanctions relief, removal of oil sanctions, effectively. That would be a pretty profound agreement and likely would have stickiness to it and would stay regardless of whether a final agreement is reached. That said, I think we're we are definitely in a space where, we talked about how we had sort of Schrodinger's ceasefire. We didn't know whether there was a ceasefire or not. It depended on who was looking at it. I think I said at the time, if we ever get a deal, it's likely to be a Schrodinger deal, and I think that's absolutely the place we're in. We don't really know what the deal is. I think we also may have a quantum deal where it sort of it's a different deal depending on which universe of the multiverse you're in. There's a version where the MOU is legal text, and that's if you take it seriously as legal text, we have a permanent end to the war. The U.S. isn't going to ever threaten to use force again. Iran is not going to advance its nuclear program. The Strait will be open. But the MOU doesn't say anything about no tolls in the Strait, right? And so, which the U.S. has said, Iran has agreed to not impose tolls. Iran, of course, has said it might charge service fees. So that's the MOU as text, and then there's the MOU as vibes, right? So this is where you have a U.S. official saying people shouldn't read too much into the language of the MOU. What's more important is the understandings we have with each other. The administration says there's going to be IAEA inspections. None of that's in the MOU. The administration says South Lebanon isn't included, that Israel can continue to defend itself. In the MOU, it says that we're going to have a freeze to hostilities in Lebanon. And then, there's the deal as Trump sort of thinks it is. And, he says things like, he clearly feels like he has commitments around the nuclear program that he's going to get to a final deal. He's going to get the removal or the destruction of the existing stockpile of nuclear material, et cetera. And then we have the deals the Iranians are going to keep negotiating, where they're continuing to say that Lebanon is in this. They're having Hezbollah is attacking Israel in southern Lebanon as we speak, just killed a number of Israeli soldiers. And then we've got the deal that's never going to happen, which is an ultimate final agreement over the dismantlement of the Iranian deal. So I think we have a very significant deal on the table where the U.S. has given up immediate, massive sanctions relief and a lifeline to the Iranian regime. We may have a nuclear deal that is frozen without any enrichment and without any advancement. But we don't know. I don't think we will know with the publishing of the text, if that ever does come about. So I think at the end of the day, we are in Schrodinger deal territory, quantum deal territory. This is going to be a deal that's negotiated on a daily basis between Trump and the Iranians. It will take many forms and shapes. It will basically be whatever the president is willing to enforce.
Andrew, what's the view from the turnpike here? Is this in fact is the cat both alive and dead inside the box, or is it dead?
That's a really good question. I think I really appreciated John's overview of all the details here, because there is only 14 points in here, but there are so many other swirling issues that to get after this 60-day window, right, to get to an agreement for what might be an enforceable or a sustainable peace framework. So, and obviously we're dealing with Hezbollah and Israel on a whole other front. And the two parties to this memorandum of understanding as a contract don't necessarily control everything that those entities do. So I would say I view this with a high degree of skepticism, not so much on the U.S. side. I think the U.S. has shown over and over again efforts to try to put together this concept of an MOU, right? Like, let's have an agreement to agree. Let's get shipping moving again. Let's get the world economy back supported with the 20% of oil and the 30% of liquid natural gas and all these fertilizer precursors. Let's stop the painful disruption and ensure free movement of commercial transit. And the other red line has always been no nuclear program for Iran. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much closer the language of this MOU gets us to those things. And I am personally highly skeptical of the clerical layer of the Islamic regime in Iran. I'm also extremely skeptical of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and their fires discipline when we've seen that they moved all this to Mosaic kind of command control. We know that they use proxies for terrorism for 47 years. So I see a lot of risk, and I guess my skepticism is less about the American side and what would become an international enforcement mechanism for freedom of navigation and demining, and much more skeptical about the Iranian regime and its senior-most Revolutionary Guard Corps leadership in not using this simply as a foil to buy some time and continue to regroup.
Yeah, and the deal gives immediate, massive, economic lifeline, but it says nothing about Iran funding proxies or rebuilding its missile production capability, which is, this war was engaged in because of the concern about the Iran building up a conventional shield to protect its development of its nuclear program. And so far, the MOU, the text, says nothing about what Iran's going to do with this massive influx of cash, and whether it's just going to be able to rebuild and reconstitute the conventional shield that the president was right to go in to try to destroy.
Amy, it seemed to me that we had a pretty good thing going, blockading the Strait of Hormuz, not letting Iran export its energy resources, starving the regime of cash. Would have taken probably a couple more months to really bite, but it would look like it was heading that direction. We were even getting some of our allied energy container ships coming out of the Gulf. We were able to protect them in a kind of shadowy mission there that seemed pretty interesting to me. Would we be better off without this memorandum of understanding?
Absolutely. So I'm going to be the Captain Obvious in this group today. Let's just go back even less than a year, because to me, this is lipstick on a pig MOU, right? This is a convenient political off-ramp for the president to get himself out of the mess that he has found himself in, that I think any rational national security advisor would have advised him against doing any of this. So last June, we obliterated all of Iran's nuclear capabilities. Obliterated. That word was everywhere. Then in late January, all of a sudden, they can launch a bomb tomorrow. We need to save the Iranian people. Uprise, all 18 different reasons why we, the United States, not Iran, started this current conflict. And now we're at the point, after 39 attempts to get to an MOU, with outbursts from the president going from, they better do this right now or I'm going to bomb their water supplies tonight, right, to today's quote of the day. We're dealing with a people that I think are very rational people, President Trump said, adding that Iranian officials are nice to deal with, not radicalized, and looking to help their country. If you read any of the comments coming out of Iran right now, the people of Iran are devastated by this deal because it gives all the power back to Iran. All Iran had to do from day one was not lose. They have done that and more. We might as well give them Alaska at this point, in my opinion. I mean, they're just going to hedge on the nuclear weapons again. 60 days are going to expire. The president is hoping that, the American people will conveniently forget that we started this. We lost it. And the biggest losers, again, are the Iranian people. So the one phrase I love in this whole MOU is that U.S. forces will leave the region within 30 days. We moved, I came and count at this point, how many carriers, units, we mobilized half of our forces to the Middle East. So now we're going to redeploy them back. And should anything happen, what are the chances that we are going to redeploy them back? And at what cost to the U.S. taxpayer, once again, to mobilize that amount of force to take care of this problem? This was ill-advised from the start. The MOU is, again, lipstick on a pig. It does nothing for the United States. We have given Iran exactly what they wanted, more money. sanctions relief. It even says, like, we have to get the IAEA off their backs. I mean, come on. Israel must be livid. The American people should be livid. Sorry, I am like fired up on this one today, guys. So I don't give any credit to the administration. This was an off ramp. This is the only one, sadly, that the president had to get himself out of a mess that he created. And now we are in a worse position, both with Iran, with our adversaries, and with the world, because we mean nothing right now. I mean, this is worse than Afghanistan, worse than 79.
All
So
right.
Les, the other day, you said you didn't care what the deal said, because
Who are you to hold me to account?
as long because the U.S. has demonstrated it'll use military force to set back a nuclear program, and as long as we retain that, well, what the deal says is that we are permanently ending any military campaign, and we forswear the threat of force in the future. Now, of course, that's only in exchange for them not, only if they don't further advance their nuclear program, that they maintain, quote unquote, the status quo.
Today.
So where are you, Les? Does it matter what the deal?
I was about to explain.
Okay.
Thanks for framing it that way, John. So the good news is the signing isn't until Friday. We've got like 48 hours here. And I would note that the president just last night, or maybe early this morning, pulled the nomination of the new ODNI fellow, Jay Clayton, because he has decided he wants to keep Bill Pulte there a little bit longer. So the president is known to change his mind on things quickly. We've got 48 hours here where he could decide maybe this MOU isn't exactly what we needed. It does seem like we'd be better off if we just went back to the way things were and didn't have this agreement. Now, that's the better national security solution in my view, and I think we may all agree here. Where I will depart a little bit is politically. It may be much better for the president and the Republicans to just get this thing over with, even if it's on an MOU that has some really bad terms in it, and it gets you to somewhere back to where we were before we started bombing in February. And that may help as things progress to November and the national election for the House and the Senate and other things. So I understand the political motives here, which may be important at the end of the day. National security wise, it seems like we'd be better off without this agreement. For one thing, the one great thing that President Trump has done is shown a willingness to attack Iran, attack their nuclear weapons program. We need to maintain the flexibility to do that. He shouldn't do any memorandum of understanding or anything else that might limit his ability to do that again in the future, or a future American president. Of course, none of these agreements will be submitted to the Senate as a treaty. None of this will be ratified. None of this will become part of international law. These are all political agreements anyway, which the JCPOA was, and we know how tissue thin those things are. So it seems to me there's still a long road to walk down here. Okay.
Can we get you on Fox tonight saying that?
If I could just weigh in, though, I think there's some really stark differences between this, even this MOU and JCPOA. And the set of the playing board right now is vastly different than it ever was during those JCPOA negotiations, where the 5+1 nations really pushing the deal were superpowers: U.S., China, Russia, UK, Germany, right? And so what we see in this deal is that there are Arab regional powers that are the mediation valve, right? So if this MOU starts to fall apart, we have Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Turkey. And let's remember, Turkey is also a NATO member. So, like, this is not the same thing. The other really structural component I want to bring up is Iran has no navy beyond this kind of mosquito fleet of small craft. It has no air force. It has no, at the moment, integrated air defense systems. So they're highly vulnerable, and nobody's talking that I've heard in any sane way about a ground invasion by the United States. But I would argue that Iran is considerably weakened, and the regime does not have the firm toehold on its population that it did, say, 6 months ago. It can't just show up and murder 30,000 people this week during the MOU period if protests were to start. And so I think that is a really strategic difference between this and JCPOA, along with those Arab U.S. allies being part of it.
I agree. I think I think we actually are in a much better spot than a lot of people are admitting. Amy, we're going to let you have the last word.
So I've heard rumors that this is going to be called the Islamabad Accords. I just want to point out to everyone on the group that Qatar, Turkey, Pakistan are kind of frenemies, not so much allies in the most case. I wouldn't necessarily put a lot of stock in their assurances for long-term peace, number one. Number two, to Andrew's last point about, we did decimate a lot of, their capabilities, but $300 billion, Andrew, goes a long, long way in rebuilding very, very fast.
Yeah, pretty soon, it's a lot of money. Pretty soon, we're talking Elon Musk level money.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks to Grace Trice, Claude Jennings, the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, June 22nd for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debate shaking up America. We're on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. You will see the inside of Andrew's truck. If you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.